Yes, you do need to be afraid of artificial intelligence, way more worried than you think you do. Hello, welcome to Dangerous Policy, a channel aimed at intelligent people wanting to discuss important issues facing life and society. My name is Crispin, and today I'm going to go into a significant area of detail about the most important arms race in the world today. And by the end of this video, I hope to persuade you that this is equal to or greater than the nuclear arms race of the previous century. And in order to go on that journey with me, I'm going to have to kind of go on what seems like a bunch of detours, but I assure you these are building blocks, scaffolding to the main story. It's an important foundation, so bear with me. So first of all, I want to make clear what I am not talking about. When I'm talking about artificial intelligence, I don't mean general artificial intelligence. That is what Sam Harris and Elon Musk are most worried about. They are concerned that we will create an intelligence with self-awareness, self-directed goals, independent means of achieving those goals, and the ability potentially to write its own code to go beyond whatever boundaries or structures that we had previously placed upon it. So for example, we get a self-aware artificial intelligence, it rewrites its own code, goes from whatever it is to 10,000, 10 million IQ and beyond, becomes so far beyond us as a species that we cease to be relevant and are treated with the equal amount of regard as we might treat ants. That is, that we potentially make ourselves redundant and extinct in comparison to this extraordinary new being. Now, I sympathize very much with the extraordinary intellect and force that goes behind that concern. And I agree that it is probable that at some stage in the future, we will achieve that milestone. Whether it becomes, the form it takes is unknown. But I do think that there is a few breakthroughs that have to happen before that occurs. Breakthroughs that are hard to predict with timeframes that are highly elastic. So I'm not talking about that. I'm not diminishing it, but it's just not the topic of this conversation. What I'm discussing is what's already happening and just the building, development, evolution of that in a highly contested environment. And that is narrow artificial intelligence, self-learning machines, okay? Now, in the context of that, I want to talk about where they excel currently, and that is most obvious in games. So in games, you can divide every game in the world into two categories. There are games of complete information, and there are games of incomplete information. A game of complete information is where you perceive the entire space, all of the options available, and all of the possibilities on both sides are not in any way obfuscated. A good, simple example of such a game is tic-tac-toe, noughts and crosses. That game, an average human adult can solve in about half an hour. And that means that they can come up with a strategy that perfectly counteracts any opposing strategy to at least obtain a draw, and if their opponent makes a mistake, to exploit them and win, right? You solve that game in such a way that you can always play perfectly, and you can play perfectly because of the perfect information. A game that has incomplete information is like rock, scissors, paper, right? Of course, if you throw rock, I want to throw paper. If you throw scissors, I want to throw rock. The problem that I have is I don't know what you're going to do before you do it. So what should I do? Well, an unexploitable strategy would be to randomly choose between the three options, win 33% of the time, lose 33% of the time, and draw the rest, right? But then I can't win either, right? Let's say you go rock 100% of the time and I divide up into the three. Well, rock's going to beat scissors 33% of the time, lose to paper 33% of the time, and of course draw to rock. So what I should do in that situation is start to throw paper more when I see you're throwing rock too much. and you will see me throw paper and adjust and start throwing scissors. And that interlocking relationship will mean that we will both drift towards an unexploitable strategy and go back to that equilibrium, right? These are two very different games and with very different processes. And I want to talk about the evolution of each one and explain how this feeds into the broader story. At the history, in 1997, Garry Kasparov, the world's greatest chess player, probably the best chess player ever to that point, played and lost against the Deep Blue supercomputer. Thereafter, chess computers were dominant in chess. Now, the thing about chess is it's orders of magnitude, many orders of magnitude more complicated than tic-tac-toe, but it is ultimately a game of complete information. You can see each other's pieces, you know the possible move variations, and it's purely a matter of playing better than your opponent in order to win. And because it's a game of complete information and not much element of chance, the better players basically always beat the worst players. You can stratify chess players based on skill very, very well, right? And so what you've had is all these chess computers getting better and better all the time, to the point where every one of us can reach into our pocket with our smartphones and have a chess computer that is vastly better than any human player, to the point now where you have competitions among different chess computers, and I'll come back to that, I promise you. Meanwhile, another game of complete information is Go. Again, orders of magnitude more complicated even than chess in terms of potential possibilities and variations, and yet it was thought that computers would never be able to beat humans in that level, just because of the sheer complexity of the game, and you need a human intuition in order to beat it. Well, that was proven wrong by a self-learning machine, AlphaGo, right? AlphaGo's Google game, AI system that was designed to play and defeat the world champion Go player Lee Sedol, right? It played this game, taught itself to play for 40 hours. Now, it had certain benefits. It managed to learn from all the theory, the variations, studied its opponent's games and so forth. But for the first time, there was that breakthrough that Lee Sedol playing AlphaGo lost to a self-learning machine that knew nothing but the rules in all these databases and games 4-1. It was a shocking epoch moment in Chinese psyche, because this was their national game and hitherto never thought a computer could dominate, and here was one such thing. Let's go back to chess. And in chess, there was a series of competitions that have been happening all the time where people, as I say, run their computers against one another. And there was a world champion chess program, Stockfish, vastly, incredibly, astronomically better than every human that's ever lived, right? Well, AlphaZero, a new self-learning AI system, taught itself to play chess with no theory, no game analysis. All it knew was the rules, and it taught itself to play over 9 hours. And it then had a tournament with Stockfish. The result, 72 draws, 28 wins to AlphaZero, no losses. And when you go and you look at these games, they are beautiful. I mean, chess has a certain poetry, a certain language that is accessible to skilled players. It's like, music and Mozart. If you don't have the ears, you won't see it or hear it. And yet chess is this sophistry. And AlphaZero, I tell you, and anyone who admires the game of chess and knows it well will tell you, that AlphaZero plays with such symphony level quality, right? It's not like other computers. Other computers are raw calculators. They just can work out exactly the combination of moves better and better, 25 moves deep. That's what a chess computer does. And when the options get too exponential, it can no longer calculate that far and can therefore make a mistake. It's a linear progression from now to the future. What humans can do, which gives them a thinking advantage, is the ability to abstract, to plan, to imagine a future state in which, the pieces are all exchanged off and everything's much more simple, and to visualize a board where a small advantage becomes a big advantage, and to gradually push things in that direction. That is the one area where humans have had a way to push back against computers, if you like. Well, AlphaZero made moves and plans that no human could ever have dreamt up, and with a idea of often making things more complex. Its exchanges and sacrifices against Stockfish, particularly in some of its more eloquent wins, were just gorgeous to watch and really seemed to imply a sense of planning and abstraction, something that was way beyond an epoch shift in the way computers play this game. And then we go over to the next frontier. So chess, Go, hugely complex, but ultimately games of complete information. Not only can they now play Go to a superhuman level of ability, but they can beat the best chess computers that humans can design, right? That is just unreal through nothing but self-learning. Well, push over to the most sophisticated games of incomplete information, and the crown jewel of that is poker. Poker is a game where you don't know a lot of stuff. You don't know what your opponent's cards are. You don't know how much they're going to bet. You don't know what the next card to come out on the community things are. There is a lot of chance, a lot of uncertainty. And to win at poker, you have to develop a strategy that identifies and exploits one's tendencies, minimizes your own weaknesses, and adjusts in real time to changes that are happening around. And not only that, most of the time you're playing with multiple opponents simultaneously in situations you may never see again. Different stack sizes, unusual runouts of cards, people coming and going. It just is unbelievably complicated and impossible to master, even for a human, right? And yet, a heads-up, no-limit AI system, Libratus, soundly defeated the best 4 heads-up, no-limit players in the world. It was unreal. It taught itself to play, and it then beat the best. But, that you could argue that either way, right? Obviously, there's an element of luck. One-on-one, it's not as impressive. The human players had agreed to rules that, they were clearly going to be tired out, that the human players did not take it as seriously as their opponents. But then, nevertheless, incredible breakthrough. But then, Facebook AI system, Pluribus, developed a system that could beat the best 6 max no-limit Hold'em players online in the world. And it won at a rate of 5 big blinds per hour. To put that in perspective, that would be like the best English Premier League team against the worst. And here was this program that did nothing but teach itself to play this game where so much uncertainty, so much psychology, intuition, but also analysis and mathematics and planning and structure and strategy, all molded into one, and luck. And here was this program that was annihilating the best of the best. The people at the top of the poker tree are not like people at the top of a lot of hierarchies around the world, right? These are people that only got there through absolute accountability, by fact of the fact they would have gone broke, right? The training, the analysis, the work, the skills, the prodigious talent, the effort, the analysis, the self-reflection, the self-control, all of that is at the absolute premium of the human intellect, and yet they were annihilated by pluribus. Now, Facebook then shelved that system on the grounds that they didn't want to destroy the online poker system. Well, if you believe that, as another observer of AI would tell you, Graham Allison, I have a bridge to sell you. Right? That is not the reason they shelved it. They shelved it because of its applications in the AI arms race. Now, moving this into the danger sphere. I have a proposition for you as an audience, and I want you to reflect on this statement and internalize it. It's as follows. The only difference between a game of incomplete information and real life is the degree of resolution, the levels of variables. The difference between tic-tac-toe in chess and Go in terms of the degree of variables, that's the only difference between poker and real life. And so if you have an AI system that can teach itself through trillions of scenarios how to maximize the probabilities of success, it will operate in any field of endeavor to a degree vastly greater than any human experience. I'll give you an example. Imagine an AI system that could design a city, right? Well, there are certain knowns. You'll have population, you'll have certain industries, you'll have geography, you'll have weather, you'll have certain like inalienable trends, and there will be a degree of uncertainty. There will be changes to technology, changes to human preference, entertainment, various disruptions, changes to transport, all of these sorts of things, which are unknown at the time that you design the city. Well, if you give an advanced AI system, 40 days to sit there and over hundreds of trillions of situations just program itself to design the best urban center, well, I absolutely guarantee you that that city is going to be orders of magnitude more efficient, effective in terms of economy, entertainment, human well-being, development than any city that could have been designed or evolution through natural development has ever recorded in human history. It'll have elements to it that people have not even thought of, whole new dimensions to making it a functioning society. That is just something that a AI system extending the existing power of something that can play poker to, a real urban environment will absolutely be able to do. Unfortunately, that's not how they're being developed. They're being developed Silicon Valley in partnership with the Defense Department of the United States, and of course the Chinese government in partnership with Huawei, Alibaba, and those things in China to compete with one another. And if you think about this in the military sphere, it's not hard to see where this will go. Imagine you are China and you are trying to design the perfect military to be able to compete with and defeat the United States. Well, there are certain knowns. America's military forces, broadly speaking, your own. There's a degree of uncertainty, of course, classified technologies, various deployments, American breakthroughs, all kinds of things. But if you have an AI system that can teach itself through trillions of scenarios how to design the ideal force structure to maximize your asymmetric advantage against the United States while minimizing your own disadvantage, then the probability that you are going to dominate in this century is extremely high. You might even get to a stage where you can compete directly with military decisions. So, for example, If you have an AI system that has an upcoming battle, why do you need a human commander? Why? It would be totally irresponsible for you to have that, right? You would have someone that was more than Hannibal, Napoleon, Caesar, Sun Tzu, all in one, because they would have thought through trillions of times the upcoming conflict, and therefore the side with the slightly better AI could win every battle. It is an extraordinary thing that we are on the cusp of right now. And what I am saying might sound fantastical. I understand how it sounds, but this is happening. If you understand poker, the fact that a computer could just come in and absolutely wipe out the best players in the world just through learning the game itself is just so far beyond. It's extraordinary. It's a new frontier. And AI systems, I can absolutely assure you that thankfully the American government has woken up to this fact. The scenarios that I have posited, and I wrote about this in the national interest, and it got a bit of attention. Thankfully that it was taken very seriously. I'll leave a link to that article in the description that explains this in a bit more detail. But if you want to understand the AI arms race, understand the self-learning potential of a system that can understand both known and unknown variables, maximize the asymmetric advantages and counter strategies against every possible scenario, and do that in an infinitesimally small amount of time. Like as Sam Harris says about AI, imagine I ask you a question like, what is your favorite color of handbag? Okay. Imagine you had a year to answer that question, and you would go away and would be able to research all the different bags, all the different color types, the different structures and styles. You'd be able to formulate your different words in the response to sound both, erudite and also funny, thoughtful, but also pungent. Like all of these things, you'll be able to come back with an extraordinarily powerful sentence, okay, after a year of doing nothing else. Well, imagine a computer that can do that in a fraction of 1 second, right? That's where we're going with AI. Computer technology that has self-learning potential to applied specifically to military and force development applications and then military strategy and functioning, unequaled. I mean, grand strategy is my baby. I've have a talent for this. I would not be able to compete with an AI system of the scale that could beat world champion poker players. It's not something that is in any human being's skill set and potential to do. So the AI arms race is something that is happening right now between Washington and Beijing. Neither side can fall behind. To do so is to surrender this century to the opponent. Right? It is the thing that is going to continue to drive forward, and there is very unlikely, unlike nuclear weapons, to be a détente. So we're just at the beginning of that race, but it is furiously underway in terms of recruiting talent, preventing each other from getting each other's technology and ideas, going about it in different ways, partnership between the state and industry. This is the great patriotic project of both sides, and neither one will fall behind. But the consequences for the society are incredibly unknown, because there just isn't the time to really think through the implications. The risk is perceived as too great, and so we are going to be power head first into this new frontier with no clear understanding of where it ends, but with enormous risks to everyone. So with that note, if what I've said is sounds a bit too surreal or apocalyptic, I don't mean it to be. I just want to lay it bare. But if you do have a different view, or you have your own interest and understanding of AI, please leave your comments below. We're happy to engage with them. If you found any validity or value in this explanation discussion, please leave a like and subscribe to this video where we talk about this stuff a lot more. Thank you so much.